This morning in North Carolina, wheels are spinning. Determination is winning. A passion is now a thriving business, and it shows no signs of slowing down. How? The power of a conversation, like the one Clint Spiegel had with First Horizon Bank about starting a bike wheel manufacturing facility in Asheville. Now it's not just talk, it's rubber meets road. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Clint. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie.
And each week, we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird. Welcome to episode 111.
111, 3 ones. That has to be auspicious, right?
Definitely. It's considered an angel number, actually, when numbers repeat like that.
Very nice. Episode 111. Well, we're glad to be back, weirdos.
Yes, as always, glad to be back and happy December. This is our first December episode. And I'm excited to share that Andrew's kicking off the month. Yes. And he has a very special episode for us this week.
Yes, we do. And so, without further ado, we're just going to get right into it.
Yeah, let's just jump right in.
So, if I describe like a jolly, mildly obese man who has a penchant for eating cookies, wears a red suit, flies in a sleigh led by flying reindeer, and is very generous with presents, I feel as if most people would know like whom I'm describing, right?
I would think so, yes.
I would definitely hope so.
Santa Claus.
You got it. I mean, if you don't know him, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm genuinely, like, sorry for you.
Yeah, even though it's a very, like, and I'm sure you'll get into this, a very Christian tradition, I feel like people all over the world are familiar with modern day Santa.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely very familiar. And I'm assuming since you're listening to this, you probably know. And who Santa Claus is, and I'm also assuming you haven't lived under a rock your entire life at this point. So, interestingly though, despite all of his fame, the history of Santa Claus, and especially the story that led to him being an icon, isn't really particularly well known, weirdly enough.
Okay.
So, without further ado though, let's just get into the actual history of Santa Claus.
That's the second time you've said without further ado.
I know. As soon as I said that, I was like, fuck. And I just cursed.
No.
I'm just on a roll right now.
Because without further ado means no more preamble. And then you say it, and then you add a ton of preamble. And then you say it again.
Oh. Well, without further ado.
Yes, tell us.
Okay, so as with many things in this world, and that we live in today,
right?
The legend of Santa Claus can actually be traced back to
pagans,
and specifically when and where.
Oh my gosh, is it Romans?
Yes, absolutely. So the Romans had obviously their Christmas equivalent called Saturnalia, which is something a lot of the weirdos probably know about.
We covered it in a previous episode, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Yes. I believe I have it written down here, and I don't remember where I put it. Anyways,
when you come across,
I come across it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of our earlier episodes.
It is, yes. And this is where many of the traditions that we have today come from, right? Specifically for Christmas, including wreaths, candles, feasts, and even presents.
Oh, that's so cool.
And this was their celebration of the winter solstice, which lands just a few days before December 25th. This is the holiday where, fun fact, the slaves and the slave owners in Rome switched places, and basically, enslaved folks would be served by these rich aristocrats.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it's a very strange.
What a strange celebration.
A little strange, yeah. Well, anyways, yeah, like I said, we did cover Saturnalia in the past, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But just know that these traditions that we have are literally ancient.
Yeah,
that's kind of the big point.
They go way back. Even you said wreaths.
Yes, exactly.
That's so cool.
And if you are interested in learning more about Saturnalia, episode number 30.
Oh, you found it. There you go.
There we go.
It is an early one.
It's an early one.
Yeah.
Not like an early one, but a pretty early one.
Mm-hmm.
So there was also a Germanic pagan tradition of Yule, which was their winter solstice celebration. And in fact, a synonym, for Christmas time is Yuletide today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
where it
so
comes from.
interesting. I never knew that it was so ancient.
Yes, another ancient. Not a lot is actually known about this holiday, and the earliest attestations we have in writing about the season comes from like early Christianization of the Germanic peoples, like in around the 5th century AD.
Wow.
So, but an etymologists believe that the word jolly actually comes from Yule.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So also during this tradition, evergreen trees were mounted in the corners of homes during this period and were decorated with pieces of food, runes, statues, and strips of cloth.
Are you serious? I had thought, I don't know if this is accurate or not, to be honest, because I probably read this online or something, but I thought that like the tradition of trees and wreaths and a lot of our Christmas traditions came from Queen Victoria or the Victorian era.
It might have been like a rediscovery. I know the 19th century was a big kind of, like I said, like rediscovery of these more ancient traditions. So it's quite possible.
But I didn't realize it goes so far back.
It goes way back. Another like literally ancient thing.
Also, what a cute human thing to do, to be like, I'm going to take this tree and I'm going to put it inside my home and I'm going to cover it in stuff.
I know, right? It's such a crazy just person thing to do when you think about it. And then we literally have a tree like right next to me.
We just got our tree today.
Yeah.
We actually got 2 trees.
We did.
We got a big tree and a little tree.
Big tree and a little tree.
We went a little Yuletide bonanza today, really.
We did, yeah. But there was also animal and possibly even human sacrifices associated with Yule. So
that's not the best.
Yeah. And hopefully that does not sound familiar. And if it does,
hopefully
then,
that doesn't.
You know, just stay away from me. Stay away from both of us.
Yes, hopefully that does not ring true for your Christmas traditions or holiday traditions that you celebrate. No animal or human sacrifices.
Absolutely. Though it is possible that it was just a rumor that was spread by Christians during like late antiquity.
Oh, yes. That's a very...
So the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah, that's a very typical thing that happened, right?
Exactly.
Kind of painting the pagan religions as barbaric and savage and things like that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So by now, we have gone over a lot of the traditions that we celebrate today and how they literally have ancient roots. But you're probably asking yourself something along the lines of, well, where the heck is Santa?
Yeah, where's Santa?
Well, we're going to get into it literally right meow.
Okay.
So the origins of Santa Claus trace back to a real person born in around 270 AD in a city called Myra in Asia Minor, which is present-day Turkey. But at the time, it was part of the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. So this man would later be venerated as a saint.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Catholic, you know. And if you surmise that we are talking indeed about Saint Nicholas, then you are correct.
Mm-hmm.
So he would become known as the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, brewers, pawnbrokers, unmarried people, students, but most importantly, at least for this narrative, children.
Wow. He's definitely a multi-passionate saint.
He's a multi-passionate saint indeed.
He did not believe in niching down.
No, he didn't.
That's a lot of different types of people, because typically whatever you are the patron saint of, or whomever, whatever it is very specific, because it usually ties to like the miracles you performed or the martyrdom, whatever. But this guy's got everybody. He's got fishermen, he's got thieves, he's got kids. Like,
I know.
he's all over the place.
He's a little all over the place. You know, and it's kind of interesting too, because we are talking about a historical figure now, but we don't know a lot about him. A lot of what's written about him actually comes much later.
Yeah, that's typically how it goes with saints.
Yeah. In one of the earliest attested and most famous incidents, though, from his life, he is said to have rescued 3 girls from being forced into prostitution.
Wow.
And he did this by dropping a sack of gold coins through the window of each of their house, or each of them, in through a window at night, so that the father could pay the dowry.
Oh, so they didn't have a dowry.
Right.
They're low income. They would need to turn to sex work to survive.
Pretty much.
And to help the dad and the girls out, he gives them the money for the dowry. That's so sweet.
Exactly. And another story has him rescuing, resurrecting 3 children who had been murdered and whose bodies were being pickled in brine to be sold as pork. Not making this up.
No, that sounds like one of those Grimm's fairy tales.
It literally does.
Wow.
It's disgusting.
So these kids are deceased and
Yes.
St. Nicholas resurrected them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty crazy, huh?
That's a pretty crazy miracle.
Yeah. And lastly, he saved 3 innocent soldiers from being wrongfully executed.
Wow.
I don't know if
There's
you see...
the theme of threes.
Yes, exactly. I was going to ask, like, you see a theme here? A lot of 3s.
The Holy Trinity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he would become known as Nicholas the Wonder Maker for the miracles that were attributed to his intercessions.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that's just the praying to other saints on behalf of someone else.
Yeah.
Intercession, just for the weirdos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you pray. So, like, when Catholics pray to saints, that's an intercession because you're not supposed to have, like under Christianity, multiple gods.
Right.
So you're asking the saint to help you out. They're kind of like giving some muscle to your prayers.
It's so funny because that's what the ancients used to do with, like, in polytheistic ones, right?
Yeah, because that's where it comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you and your saint, whoever it is, it's Nicholas, it's Monica, it's whoever, they're like teaming up with you to ask God for whatever the thing is that you need help with.
That's awesome.
It's kind of cute when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, and going back to St. Patrick, interestingly, he would be a victim of Christian persecutions under Emperor Diocletian in the early 4th century.
Do you mean Nicholas?
Nicholas, yes.
You said Patrick.
Oh, wow.
St. Patrick.
That's weird.
Another saint.
Saint.
That's holiday is very big.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that was a Freudian slip right there. I don't know. That's so far away too. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, St. Nicholas, not St. Patrick, guys.
Wow. Under Diocletian, you said?
Yeah, so Diocletian persecuted some of the early Christians in the early 4th century, and he was thrown into prison and beaten, most likely. And until another Roman emperor would free him, and that would be none other than Constantine the Great.
Right.
Yeah, he was who would be known as the first Christian Roman emperor.
That makes a lot of sense then.
It does, right? And super random, but I thought this was interesting. So in 2004, a study by the University of Manchester actually studied the bones of St. Nicholas.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
The actual bones.
The actual bones. And not only did they confirm that he lived until his 70s, which is what tradition dictates, but he actually suffered a broken nose that had only partially healed. And this is most likely like evidence to like the persecutions that he had faced
when he was in prison and he got beat up.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is.
When science is able to confirm at least pieces of these myths, that's so fascinating.
I know. I love that stuff too. So, according to true tradition, I cannot speak today. But St. Nicholas, not St. Patrick, would die in the mid-4th century on December 6th, which would become his saint day.
Yeah.
And that's only a few days away from the time of this recording.
Yes, because today it is December 3rd.
Yes, and this episode will be dropping December 4th.
Yeah, wow. So happy early St. Nicholas Day.
There you go, guys. And what I think is kind of crazy is that St. Nicholas really did see in his lifetime kind of the rise of Christianity within the Roman Empire.
That's right.
It went from persecutions to tolerance to acceptance to basically supremacy, all within the span of like a 70-year time frame. That's nuts to think about.
When you say it like that, that's really fast. That's someone's lifetime.
Right, exactly.
That's crazy.
So, as you can see here, though, there's nothing really connecting Saint Nicholas to Christmas at this time, right?
Not to Christmas, no, but I see the early beginnings of Santa here with like the
Yes.
giving of the gold,
Right.
like through the window and things like that.
I'm glad you said that because that's what I thought too.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like he's very generous. I see it.
Right?
But so far, you're right. No Christmas.
No Christmas. So what gives? What gives, Stephanie?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't write this episode.
This episode is brought to you in part by DraftKings. Unwrap the first of many presents this season with holidays on the house from DraftKings Casino. With hundreds of games, prizes, and promos, DraftKings Casino has everything on your list. Right now, new players who play $5 get $100 instantly in casino credits. What are you waiting for? Cozy up with all the classics like slots, blackjack, and roulette. Or play exclusive games you'll find only at DraftKings Casino to feel the holiday cheer all season long. Download the DraftKings Casino app now and sign up with promo code HFW and play $5 to get $100 in casino credits. That's promo code HFW. Only at DraftKings Casino. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. 1 per opted-in new customer. $5 wager required. Max $100 in casino credit awarded, which require 1x playthrough within 7 days. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/holidays on the house. Restrictions apply.
Okay, so over the course of centuries, his rep as the patron saint of children grew.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And so by the year 1200 AD, Saint Nicholas was the undisputed champion of the world.
What?
No, I'm just said that. No, but in all seriousness, Saint Nicholas was the unchallenged bringer of gifts and the toast of celebration centered around his feast day, December 6th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not actually the champion of the world.
This makes more sense.
Much more sense, right? So the saint would be depicted suspiciously similar to the likeness of both the Roman god Saturn and the Norse god Odin, sporting like a nice big white beard.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're still not at the place of the Santa that you and I have in our minds.
Right.
But you can see it's like, okay, we're moving that direction. Because it's very unlikely that in real life, St. Nicholas would have had that, like, he would have sported that giant beard.
They weren't in fashion.
No.
Yeah.
So also by this point, he could fly. So there's that too.
Of course.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of lame if you can't.
Not even with the help of reindeer. He could just straight up fly, ladies and gentlemen.
Like Superman?
Yeah, like Superman.
That's really cool. If I ever have to be martyred and become a saint, I would request that as well.
Of course.
Yeah, the patron saint of weirdos.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
There we go. That would definitely be more so you. Maybe more so me.
Maybe more so you. Maybe. Sometimes there are saints that come in pairs. So we could be the duo.
Like Castor and Pollux?
Yes, exactly. Like Castor and Pollux.
Like not at all. They were like twins.
Yeah.
Ugh. Not Cersei and Jamie.
That would be gross.
That'd be so gross.
And for folks who do not know, because maybe you just started listening to this podcast, Andrew and I are married. So that's why that would be gross.
Yes. Just want to make that very clear. Okay. So going back to St. Nicholas, though, his feast day would be continued like for the next 300 years, all the way into the early 16th century. So now, if you really know your history, you might have a guess as to why all of a sudden this worship of Saint Nicholas in like the early 1500s might have come under fire. Any guesses?
Is it just that medieval time period's not super down with the pagan rooted stuff?
No.
Okay. I tried.
It's okay. So
You're like, obviously she does not know her history.
obviously she doesn't know.
This is so embarrassing.
No.
Tell us then.
Well, Stephanie, you are correct because you did guess it had to do with the rise of Protestantism.
I didn't guess that, but thank you.
You did guess that. I literally have in my notes here like, yes, Stephanie, you're correct. So specifically with the rise of Reverend Martin Luther and Protestantism as a whole, right?
Martin Luther was a homie.
He was a homie, but it still they didn't want to celebrate like the people, right?
Yeah.
That took away from Christ.
Yeah, you're right. Protestantism is not down with like the saints and
Exactly.
the saint days and the feasts. You're right.
And I can't elaborate about it too much just because like the history of like religious doctrine, just one, like I don't know a lot about it. Like I know the general like basics to it. And two, if I'm being honest, guys, it just doesn't interest me as much as like some other like societal themes. But it's important for this, obviously.
Essentially, and I say this truly not meaning to offend anyone, I'm not religious but grew up going to Catholic school. Essentially, the two groups are in this point kind of arguing over semantics.
Yeah, that's what I always thought too.
Yeah, they're kind of arguing over like just who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I think everyone should do what makes them feel good.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
It should be personal.
They really should have just had us and been like, guys, it's chill.
Guys, just be chill.
Like,
it's cool.
Imagine us saying that to them. Guys, be chill.
Just be chill. Everyone go do your own thing.
Oh my God.
I think it would have gone over really well.
Yeah. Well, the worship of saints in general, as you just said, like it was a big no-no with a lot of Protestant sects. And it was actually considered heresy a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And with lots of like the Germanic European countries, this Protestantism really took hold and the worship of saints was mostly outlawed.
That makes sense. Yeah. If it's heresy, then.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And when we get to St. Nicholas specifically, though, it gets a little weird because as far back, well, let me just take a step back. As far back as the early 15th century in England, they started to discard the idea of St. Nicholas in favor of Father Christmas.
Oh, yeah, which we use interchangeably now.
Yes, and that's a whole, I'll get to that more like later on.
Okay.
But just know that they have Father Christmas, right?
All right.
And, he was a bearded reveler who brought like gifts to children.
So basically the same shit.
The same shit. Like he looks different, but like the idea's there, right?
Yeah.
The idea's there.
It's the same vibes.
Sadly, no mention of flying reindeer though at this point in time.
Or flying Father Christmas.
Correct.
Okay, that's lame.
Lame. So even Martin Luther himself though urged that people should celebrate baby Jesus as opposed to the gift bringer Saint Nicholas.
That's right, Martin Luther. It's all about baby Jesus.
It really was, yeah. I like Martin Luther, I think, as a whole. I do think he got this wrong.
Yeah, I think it's about both.
Yeah.
It's a yes and moment.
Yeah, not a yes, no. I was like, wait a minute. No, I'm screwing that up.
And or.
Yeah, and or. No, it's just a yes and.
Yeah. Or wait, I think we screwed that up again.
You know where we're going
Either
with
or.
This. Either or.
Dios mío, we got it.
We got it.
It's not either or, it's yes and.
Boom.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm speaking in like fairly broad strokes here, but we're gonna get like a wee bit more granular because this tradition of gift giving on Christmas Eve as opposed to December 6th actually started with Martin Luther.
Really?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
There's a lot of back and forth, and you'll see that.
Okay.
But so. In the promise of being granular, so in around 1566, the Netherlands rebelled against Philip II of Spain and would eventually be successful in ending Spanish rule in the country.
Right.
So this brought about Protestantism, specifically Calvinism, as the de facto state religion within this change.
Yes.
Saints were no longer celebrated, right?
Yeah.
Again, broad strokes, but you're getting the idea. There is one exception, though, to this, and I'm fairly certain you can guess to whom I'm referring.
St. Nicholas.
You got it. So the celebrations of St. Nicholas would confoundingly remain highly popular, especially in Amsterdam, where events like street markets and fairs were kept alive, and people impersonating Nicholas dressed in red clothes instead of a bishop's like tabard and mitre were very common.
Yeah, they were like, you know what? We're not down with the saints thing. That's weird for us, but we are down to party.
We're down to party, and this St. Nicholas dude is...
He could party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
He brings that Yuletide.
Yeah. So, but while this was happening, there was also developments going across the Atlantic in the New World. So, well before the British colonies that would eventually form the United States were even founded, St. Nicholas had already been introduced into the New World. Vikings, funny enough, were the first to bring him out of Europe and dedicated a cathedral to him in Greenland. Not sure if that really counts as like the quote-unquote New World, but I like Vikings, and I thought this was pretty interesting, honestly.
That is super interesting, and it's not a New World.
Yeah. I didn't think it was, but I was like, close enough.
Yeah, to the Europeans, the New World.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're not going to like this, but even Columbus in 1492 dedicated a Haitian port to St. Nicholas.
Ugh, the eye roll.
I know. Spaniards would even name an early Floridian settlement St. Nicholas Ferry, which still survives to this day as the St. Nick neighborhood in Jacksonville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Needless to say, St. Nicholas is basically as old in the Americas as European colonization is on the continent.
So it just shows how much people cared about celebrating St. Nicholas in December.
Exactly.
That it's obviously like one of the first saints and one of the most long-lasting saints that they brought to the Americas.
True.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
So just because the celebration of St. Nicholas was introduced does not necessarily mean, though, that like the tradition was super popular.
Mm-hmm.
So in New England especially, like since Puritans were more concentrated in that area, the feast of St. Nicholas was hardly ever practiced in that region.
I don't think Puritans had feast days like that.
I don't think they had fun.
I don't think fun was their vibe.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think I'm fairly certain I have Puritan ancestors, and I do not identify with them even like remotely.
Yeah. You're all about the feast days?
Yeah, I'm all about the feast days.
And the witchery?
Yeah.
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 I mean, you do have a podcast called History for Weirdos. So.
Yeah, I don't think I would definitely be like burned at the not burned at the stake. That's a European thing, but in the Americas, I would definitely be like stoned or something.
Pressed to death. Yeah, throwback.
That would be an honor. So, since most colonies though, in the Americas, especially like on the east coast of like what is the present day United States, was founded by the English, St. Nicholas was not super popular, right?
Okay.
There are a few exceptions, like the German settlers in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
And even more famously in New York, which was originally founded as New Amsterdam by the Dutch.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Sinterklaas would remain popular, which, by the way, is the Dutch, basically Santa.
Can I tell
Saint
them
Nicholas.
something?
Yes.
I was sitting on the couch while Andrew was writing his episode at the kitchen table.
I know what you're going to say.
And all I hear all of a sudden is like a robotic voice being like, Sinterklaas, Sinterklaas, like over and over again, and Andrew mumbling to himself. So was Andrew practicing the pronunciation.
And I nailed it, I think.
I think you nailed it too.
Watch like Dutch people that are listening be like, actually, you're saying it wrong.
Actually, that's so offensive.
I know. Well, I think it was after you butchered Leicestershire.
Oh my God.
I was like,
we got lots of corrections on that one.
We got lots of corrections on that one. So
I'm
I was like,
so sorry. I forgot it again, so I'm not going to say it again.
Leicestershire. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. So Sinterklaas, though, would remain popular, right, in the area until the British took the settlement. And the tradition would kind of die out for a little bit, but even that isn't 100% true. Because we do, funny enough, see a resurgence as far back as the 1770s, of course, when anti-British sentiments were at an all-time high.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
That then celebrating St. Nicholas would kind of be an act of rebellion.
And get this, actually, we would see St. Nicholas throughout the American Revolution as a patriot symbol.
What?
And represented like the antithesis of the British Christmas tradition.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of actually wild.
That's so cool. I never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So I was like, wow, I learned something new about like the American Revolution. I feel like I knew like a decent amount.
Especially after our Boston trip.
Exactly. It's not necessarily my like Roman Empire, but I do find it very fascinating.
Yeah.
My Roman Empire is literally ancient Rome.
Yeah.
It's like, I would say ancient history in general, because like I could also like, I could really go into the Greeks and even earlier, like the Mesopotamians. Anyways, we're talking about St. Nicholas here. So I know like this whole idea of like Christmas being seen as like un-American at the time, but you have to understand that like you really have to separate like St. Nicholas from the modern Christmas tradition to understand their perspective. They were wholly separate.
Yeah.
It was not and, it was either or.
Ah, you got it right that time.
You got it right. Which I get is hard because it is like almost impossible to imagine Christmas today without Saint Nick, Santa Claus, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. Yeah. But I could see how our Santa Claus is like a bunch of other stuff plus Saint Nicholas.
Exactly.
And you're talking about Saint Nicholas to them is totally separate.
It was like Saint Nicholas and then other stuff added on to him. Yeah. That's kind of, I think, the way that I would view it. And also it's funny because like this St. Nicholas that I'm referring to isn't even like close to what we would imagine as Santa Claus today. Not yet. There's obviously similarities, which we've already covered, but it's not the same guy. But speaking of which, it's in this 19th century that we see that start to change. And we really start to come to see the Santa Claus that we like imagine in our heads like come to fruition.
Okay.
So what was Christmas like at this time? Was it similar to what we have today? And it's not even close. So completely different. Puritans had ironically eliminated Christmas as a holy season, and popular celebrations of Christmas at this time were riotous, like featuring just the drunken mob and public disorder.
Oh, wow.
So it is very different than Christmas today.
So either you were kind of like engaging in debauchery or you were doing nothing for Christmas?
Yeah, more or less. I think the upper class of society did have a little bit more of what we would imagine as like a Christmas, but still it was
like
different.
Probably a nice meal with the family type of thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
But, you know, Protestants mostly ignored Christmas during the early 19th century in the United States.
Yeah.
Which sort of also made this weird, like, unholy alliance, no pun intended, with industrialists, as they were able to keep people working, like, for longer, even in the later cold months, as December 25th was just a regular day to them.
That sucks so much because that's so cruel, first of all. Those workers were not treated well. And second of all, it just kind of goes against the rhythms of nature. There's a reason that all over the world you celebrate the winter solstice, the summer solstice, things like that. Because we're animals, we're part of nature. So in the colder months, it makes sense to rest more.
Right.
There's less to harvest, things like that, right? So it really, I think it makes sense that it's always been like a family time or a time of rest and relaxation. So whether or not there's Christmas, I feel like that's so mean to do in the colder months to people.
I completely agree with you. And I do think that it was such a shame, especially like, I mean, we're Americans. We get like 2 days off a year already.
Yeah. Yeah. So these guys got 1 day off a year, it sounds like.
However, though, we're starting to see the winds of change, like I had alluded to earlier. So in 1809, Washington Irving, most famous for his stories, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
That's right.
And Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah.
He wrote a satirical history of New York that depicted St. Nicholas as not as a bishop, like in the church, but rather like a non-religious Dutch dude with a clay pipe.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
I know. I think I don't know where it came from, but that's where
That's where he went with it?
That's where he went with it. Exactly. Thank you. But the idea of what we think of like today as Santa Claus would actually materialize a little over 200 years ago in 1821 from an anonymous illustrated poem.
Oh.
So the character known as Santa Claus arrived from the north in a sleigh, with a flying reindeer, only one, wearing baggy furs that were typical of Germanic gift bringers, and delivered presents via chimney.
Wow. And this was an anonymous illustration?
Anonymous. We don't know who this guy was.
And did I hear you correctly that it's Santa Claus?
Yeah, Sante.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how Goofy says it.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know, that's what I thought too. I was like, huh, that's funny.
Goofy always says Santa Claus.
But yeah, it's like 200 years old.
Wow.
That pronunciation, at least.
Goofy's educated.
But if you were bad, though, Santa Claus would leave a long black birchen rod, which could be used by parents to beat their children.
Ay. Please, let's hope that's not in anyone's Christmas traditions now.
I know.
Poor
my
kids.
God.
Kids had it so rough back in the
They
day.
did.
Kids were just seen as a nuisance, like either work and help us keep the other kids alive or we're going to beat you.
Pretty much.
Like, what a raw deal. No one asks for that.
It's a good time had by all.
Yeah.
So 2 years later, in 1823, the poem titled A Visit from St. Nicholas by Henry Livingston was published, but we know it better by its alternate title, The Night Before Christmas.
Yeah, that's the one my dad reads every
Yes.
Christmas Eve.
And this was really important, actually, as it further described what Santa looked like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here's, in fact, a little excerpt that I'm going to read.
My favorite.
He was dressed in all fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right old jolly elf.
Yay! Bravo!
Thank you.
We have the book. Well, I guess the poem.
Somewhere here.
Somewhere here with us right now. I can't see it, but it's one of my favorites. That's so beautiful. I didn't realize that's our first physical description of Santa Claus.
Yes. Like
the one we think of.
Exactly. That's really detailed.
Yeah.
And yeah, 200 years this year.
200 years this year. That's so cool.
Yeah.
My dad's going to love that fact. Also, shout out to my dad because he requested this episode topic.
He did.
Yeah.
Another one of you weirdos did also request this as well. But yeah, my father-in-law also did. So
literally called to be like, hey.
He did.
When's that episode coming out? So here it is, Dad.
You'll be happy to hear it.
This episode is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. So for the holiday season, Andrew and I celebrate Christmas, and we have a really fun Christmas tradition of exchanging one gift on Christmas Eve before we open gifts from friends and family on Christmas Day. And whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself during tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. As you all know, I'm a therapist who's benefited from therapy, so I'm a little bit biased here, but I honestly can't say enough good things about having a therapist in your corner. They can help you learn coping skills, learn how to set boundaries, and just generally empower you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/HFW today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/HFW.
So Santa would become further entrenched in the American psyche, ironically enough, during the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
So in 1863, political cartoonist Thomas Nast, as like Condé Nast.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So he began a series of annual black and white drawings in Harper's Weekly based on the descriptions found in the poem and Washington Irving's work. Wow. So these drawings established a thick Santa with flowing beard, fur garments, and of course a clay pipe.
That was so aggressive.
Thick. I thought you guys would like that.
That's really, really interesting. I think it makes a lot of sense because obviously the country is going through such a painful time that we lean into things like Santa Claus and
Right.
Christmas more.
Well, it's interesting too because this was also a political strategy or
How
by
so?
Abraham Lincoln to associate like Santa Claus, like
With
this
the North?
American thing with the North and like as American, not Confederate.
Wow, that's really smart.
Yeah.
That's really, really smart. And on a personal note, because I'm sure you're all dying to know, my ideal Christmas aesthetic, thank you for asking, babe. My ideal Christmas aesthetic is actually the Little Women Christmas aesthetic
Okay.
from the Greta Gerwig film.
Oh, and that was in the Civil War.
And that's during the Civil War. And
Yeah.
I think that is the most beautiful, romantic Christmas aesthetic ever.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, yeah, going back to Santa Claus here.
Clearly you found that
That
fascinating.
was very fascinating.
Well, tell us, what's your ideal Christmas aesthetic?
I don't know, probably like in the snow or something, like a cabin, like in the like snowy woods and stuff.
So you like a rustic Christmas?
I like rustic, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I like rustic.
Mine's better.
So he would continue drawing Santa Clauses for the next 2 decades.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
this
want to see
Nast.
these drawings.
You know, we'll post them.
Okay.
And his version of Santa is more or less like the one that we know today. He even gave the name Santa Claus, or I shouldn't say he gave the name. The Santa Claus already existed, but Santa Claus is a natural, like phonetic alteration from the German Sankt Nikolaus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And other American icons such as writer George Webster and the inventor of the holiday card, Louis Prang, helped further develop what we imagine as Santa Claus.
Wow. I never even thought of who invented the holiday card.
Yeah, it was this dude, Louis Prang.
Wow.
Fun fact.
That's crazy.
This included depicting his toy factory and home being covered in snow and the iconic red furs with like the white trim that
Yeah.
Santa Claus is known for.
His drip.
His drip. And the most the most ironic thing about this whole thing is how the secularization of Santa Claus actually ended up making Christmas a religious holiday again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So oh my God, that's so interesting. Making Santa more secular just got people's like Christmas spirit up essentially, which then got people more interested in Christianity.
Kind of, yeah. So by the 1850s, Sunday schools had actually started kind of like co-opting and accepting secular Santa Claus, the Christmas tree, and of course gift giving, as that drove like attendance skyward.
That makes a lot of sense. So they jumped on that marketing bandwagon real fast.
Absolutely, they did.
Yeah.
There's even a movement in the Anglican Church, or like the Church of England, called the Oxford Movement during this time as well, that called for the re-embracement of old Christian, / Catholic / Orthodox traditions in the church. Because they're like, oh, this stuff's actually kind of dope.
Yeah, this is kind of fun.
So what I told about Martin Luther, I'm like, I agree with most of you, like most of the things you stood for Martin Luther, but this was one of the things you messed up. No one's perfect though. And
No
he'd be
one's
like, oh, okay, that's fair.
I'm glad you two settled that.
We settled it. This is like what goes on in my mind.
Good.
I'm low-key insane. Okay, so all of this together completely solidified our idea of what Santa Claus is today. And in fact, the Santa from 100 years ago, more or less, is virtually indistinguishable from the one we have in our heads.
Yay.
So
He's old.
And so now we kind of come to a really interesting phenomenon that is similar to something that we had covered in a previous episode. So basically how an ancient idea centered around the harvest that came from Europe to the Americas was transformed in the New World and then kind of had a reverse migration back to Europe.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, we covered this in the History of Halloween, episode 107. And I can say that pretty much the same thing happened here with Santa.
Yeah, it's a very similar pattern.
Yeah, although it's a little bit different and it's to a smaller degree, but still, it did happen. So we have spoken about Father Christmas in Britain already, right?
Yeah.
And there was also, and I'm going to butcher this. This is in French. The Père Noël.
Yeah, Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, Noel is different. Yeah, Father
Yeah.
Christmas.
Father Christmas, yeah, just in French, in France. But in the modern day, they all have basically taken on the same identity.
Exactly, yeah.
As like the modern Santa Claus, though they all started out separately.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, there'll always be some regional differences, but they are more or less the same as they have the shared characteristics of the red outfit, the workshop at the North Pole, and a team of reindeer.
Of course.
Of course, right?
You know what I thought was really interesting growing up was that my dad grew up celebrating Christmas, believing in Santa, but my mom didn't.
Oh, that is really interesting.
My mom was like aware of Santa kind of
Right.
vaguely, but in Mexico, when she was a kid, it was still more heavily focused on the three wise men, and they come in January.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there was like, I think it started to get more popular actually probably during her childhood in Mexico, this idea of Santa.
Right.
But she still kind of lived in this, I guess, older,
Yeah.
more ancient tradition than my dad.
That's so interesting.
So she was always really excited during Christmas for us to do things like putting out cookies and carrots for the reindeer, things like that, because she didn't grow
course.
up with any of those traditions.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Well, I'm glad that she has them now.
Yeah. And we still do celebrate the wise men coming.
Yes, that's a Catholic thing, right?
Yeah, it's a Catholic thing. It's very popular in Mexico. I don't know about other parts of Latin America, but basically on the day of the three wise men, the night before, you leave out a shoe. And
Christmas Eve.
No, this is in January. I think it's January
Oh.
6th, I believe, 5th or 6th.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You leave out a shoe, and then when you wake up, they put a present under your shoe. Because the three
Nice.
wise men, it makes sense when you think about it. They gave baby Jesus his first gifts.
Baby Jesus.
So now they continue to give gifts to kids.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Also, if you're a kid, that's really cool.
If you're a kid like me that grew up with both, it's really cool because then you get extra presents again in January.
What if you were like, and I had a friend who was Jewish but also celebrated Christmas, but
But then
you
if he was also Mexican,
yeah,
that's the jackpot right there.
that's the trifecta.
Yeah. So many presents.
Well, we're gonna shift gears here, and we're gonna talk about commercialization because
Dun, dun, dun.
as with Halloween, we wouldn't be where we are today without some commercialization. Am I right or am I right?
It would not be America
It really wouldn't.
without some commercialization.
So insert Coca-Cola 1931. You have an American artist by the name of Haddon Sonny Sundblom who took one look at his friend Lou Prentice
Ooh.
and really thought, hey, you're going to be Santa. And he basically used his friend Lou as the model for Santa Claus.
Wow.
Yes.
It's based off a real dude named Lou?
Yeah, the Coca-Cola ones at least.
That's cool.
So, and I can't understate how popular these drawings would become.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, Coca-Cola still uses them in official promotions to this day.
They're beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
People even incorrectly thought that this man made the OG Santa. But if you've been listening to this episode, you know that this is indeed incorrect. And this campaign that he did lasted 35 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He did it for 35 years.
That's wild.
Right? And by the 1950s, Santa was widely used, basically endorsements, right, for a range of consumer products.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So this commercialization aspect was what really drove the image across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so successful that like authoritarian dictators like, communist Joseph Stalin
Oh boy.
even banned Saint Nicholas or, Santa Claus.
They banned Santa Claus?
Yes, though Santa would, of course, as we all know, survive communism.
Santa survived communism. Yay!
And also, before we start to like wrap up, because I think the weirdos, you guys would want to know this, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer came about as the same time as like the commercialization of Santa began. So going back to 1939, Robert L. May, a copywriter at the Montgomery Ward department store, wrote a Christmas-themed story poem to help bring holiday traffic into his store.
Wow, that's so smart.
So he would introduce the story of Rudolph, how he was bullied, and that faithful foggy night, and how, Santa needed his help to lead the sleigh.
Is it the song that I love? Or is it different?
I don't know.
Ooh, we should look that up
But
later.
it's a story poem. So maybe it must be. It's the original.
Yeah.
So the message was that given the opportunity, a liability can be turned into an asset. And that proved to be very popular.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly.
That's so cool because Rudolph's nose, they teased him for it. But guess who needed that nose? Santa.
I almost said Jesus. I don't know why.
Baby Jesus.
Baby Jesus in particular.
I think it makes so much sense that this commercialization, this Coca-Cola Santa, became so popular around the world because it's just such a distinct icon. Like the red coat, the fur, the white beard, the rosy cheeks. He's bald, like he's really plump.
Right.
That's just so distinct. I can't think of another word. That's really, those are the types of symbols that like catch on fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
I know, right? So with contemporary Santa Claus, right, the traditions around him have not only just persisted, but they've taken on more and more forms, right?
Okay.
So like letters being written from children to Santa in the United States dates all the way back to like the early 20th century.
That's so cute.
And in fact, if you wanted to send a letter, the U.S. Postal Service advises you to send it to North Pole Holiday Postmark, Postmaster, 4141 Postmark Drive in Anchorage, Alaska, 99530.
Oh my gosh. Can we send a letter? We don't have kids. Let's do it.
Anyways, countries all over the world would participate in this tradition, ranging from, unsurprisingly, the US, France, Germany, Australia, Austria, Bulgaria, Canada, Spain, Finland, Ireland, New Zealand, Portugal, Poland, Slovakia, Sweden, Switzerland, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is all over the place.
Yeah. That got popular.
It got poppin'.
Yeah.
Also, shopping malls have always, or not always, they also started introducing like Santa themed areas with, popular tradition of sitting on Santa's lap, right? To tell him what you wanted for Christmas. But my personal all-time favorite is the NORAD Santa Tracker. And
So
by the
cute.
way, NORAD stands for the North American Aerospace Defense Command.
Our military.
It's a joint American-Canadian Airspace Defense Center.
Yep. And they're tracking Santa.
And they're tracking Santa. They've been doing it since 1955.
That's so cute.
They claim to use radar, but
They claim
I'm
to use-
skeptical myself.
Why are you skeptical?
I don't know.
You don't trust the government?
It's the government.
Yeah.
And in the years since, there have been many copycats, like even including Google.
Yeah.
Right, that have their own. So
I trust NORADs. That's what I'm going to be using this year.
absolutely, they're the OG.
Yeah.
They get precedence. So my dear weirdos, that's more or less the history of how we have Santa, right? You have this Catholic bishop in the 3rd and 4th centuries Rome turned into a fictional dude in red furs who drives a sleigh powered by flying reindeer and gives children presents via the chimney.
That's quite a transformation.
That is the transformation. And my sources for this week were history.com, Nat Geo, the stnicholascenter.org, the Oxford Eagle, Explore the Archive, all that is interesting, and of course our personal favorite, Wikipedia.
That was awesome, babe. I really loved that. I can only imagine how difficult this episode was.
Yes.
Because there's no like one clear narrative.
No, it's kind of like
it's such an amalgamation of things.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating.
Which I guess is kind of like human history, more or less. But yeah, when you're looking at a span of like but like, you know, we're approaching 2,000 years. Like things are going to change.
That was so cool. I got to learn so much about Sanny.
Yeah, Sanny. And if you are listening on Spotify, they give you an option to leave a comment. So go ahead and leave a comment with your favorite Christmas tradition.
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Yeah, I want to hear it, guys.
Do you have a favorite Christmas tradition?
Presents, opening them.
Oh my God. You really leaned into the commercialization.
I was like, yeah, baby, give me those presents. No, actually, I just love Christmas trees.
Yes,
I love the
we
smell
both
of
do.
them. I don't know if it's I guess it is a tradition. It's kind of basic, but I don't even necessarily like decorating them, but I just love having it in our house.
Yes.
And kind of like what we did today, we went out and actually bought a Christmas tree. I love that.
The smell. Yeah.
Not necessarily like carrying it into the apartment, but
that was rough. For you.
Yeah. You got to just like watch.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this looks hard.
Yeah. But I love Christmas trees. So what about you?
That's a really beautiful one. It's one of my favorites. And that's one of the more ancient ones.
Yes. Makes sense.
For me, I think, what's one of my favorite ones? I think as a kid, it was Santa. Just the idea of like writing a letter to him and trying to catch him coming into the apartment.
Right.
Things like that. Like I just loved the idea of Santa until I found out some dark news that our younger listeners need not hear.
They need not hear. They need not hear.
But I think now as an adult, I think I also just love the spirit of Christmas. I love the idea, and I think that's what Santa represents really, is just this idea of warmth and generosity. And I actually really love how kid-centered it is. Yeah. Whether you have kids or not, like letting your inner child come out and have fun, to me, that's the best part of it.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thanks, babe.
I like that. It's kind of abstract, but also just like amazing.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
I'm one with the words today.
Yeah, no, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for teaching us about the history of Santa Claus.
You got it.
Weirdos, thank you so much as always for listening. Please comment your favorite Christmas tradition if you're listening on Spotify. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram if you aren't doing so already. You can find us at History for Weirdos. And I think that's it.
That's it, guys. Until next time.
Until next time, weirdos.
Adios.
Breast milk science. It's a thing. And it's our thing. We're By Heart. We're an infant formula company on a mission to get a lot closer to the most superfood on the planet, breast milk. Our patented protein blend has more of the important and most abundant proteins found in breast milk. We're the first and only U.S.-made formula to use organic, grass-fed whole milk, not skim. We make our formula in our own factories in Iowa, Oregon, and Pennsylvania, using a small batch manufacturing process that works to preserve the integrity of our ingredients. We ran the largest clinical trial by a new infant formula company in 25 years, and clinically proved benefits like easier digestion, less gas, and softer poops versus a leading infant formula. We were the first infant formula company to earn the Clean Label Project Purity Award. And while we've put a lot into By Heart, there's a long list of things you won't see on our ingredient list, like no corn syrup, no maltodextrin, no GMO ingredients, no soy, no palm oil. By Heart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.
Discover, this is Daniela.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just want to thank you for making me feel so special. I earned cash back on debit for my dinner party groceries.
That's great, but with Discover Cashback Debit, we give everyone cash back on everyday purchases. Anything else I can help you with?
Do you like asparagus and mushroom sorbet? I've got leftovers.
Introducing Discover Cashback Debit, a checking account with cash back. It pays to Discover. Eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.